Greetings and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be explaining my process for growing bluebonnets at home. If you're from the state of Texas, you've probably noticed that the bluebonnets are in full bloom this year. Over the past 4 years, I've been growing bluebonnets in my front and backyard to increase my curb appeal. They're one of my favorite flowers, and as you may be aware, they're the Texas state flower. They're actually surprisingly easy to grow, but there's a few things that you should know before getting started. In this video, I'll be explaining some pitfalls you can run into with growing these flowers, and also helping you to set some expectations. I recently had the opportunity to do an interview with KUT, which is Austin's NPR station, addressing the topic of how to grow bluebonnets at home. I was one of the local gardeners that they picked to interview, and they've also interviewed a couple of other environmental experts, so if you want to go see some tips about how to do this, I'll link the article when it is published. As I previously mentioned, I've been growing these wildflowers for a few years now. If you've been watching the channel for some time, you may have seen the video I published on Texas wildflowers back in the spring of 2021, or maybe the video I published on how I grow bluebonnets at home in the spring of 2023, where I explained how I plant these seeds, how they germinate, and how they eventually go back to seed. All of the bluebonnets featured in my videos have been grown from seed, and so here's what a bluebonnet seed actually looks like. They're pretty tiny, smaller than a corn kernel. And if you buy a bluebonnet seed pack at a nursery or hardware store, you'll probably get somewhere between about 20 to 50 bluebonnet seeds. And simply put, that's not enough to grow a bluebonnet meadow like this one. When you plant these seeds, you can expect probably under 20% of them to germinate within 2 years. So let's say you put 50 bluebonnet seeds down, you might get 10 bluebonnet plants, which will be really pretty, but it doesn't constitute an actual bluebonnet meadow. So when I had originally seeded these plants on my front lawn a couple of years ago, I believe I used 2 to 3 ounces of bluebonnet seed. There's about 1,000 seeds per ounce, and so I've wound up with a thick bluebonnet meadow year after year. And this is now the second year that I've seen these seeds come up. And so here in the video I'm showing this is what a bluebonnet plant looks like when it's gone to seed. You get these seed pods sprouting on the side of the plant. Each pod can contain 8 to 10 seeds, and you can see there's a couple of pods there on each plant. And so one bluebonnet plant can put down 100 seeds by itself easily. So for a complete timeline of how I seeded this meadow, I bought my home in the fall of 2021, and as I mentioned, I scattered those 2,000 to 3,000 bluebonnet seeds in the fall of 2021. This meadow on screen here is the 2023 meadow. So 18 months later, these bluebonnets bloomed, and eventually they went to seed. And when they go to seed, they create these seed pods that eventually dry out and crack open, and the seeds are scattered back into my lawn, and those seeds then seeded my 2024 meadow. So just to reiterate, I only seeded one time when I initially bought my house, and the future meadows have just been the descendants of the first one that I seeded. So just to set some expectations, these bluebonnet seeds usually take 18 to 24 months to germinate from the time that you plant the seeds. And the reason for that is the hull of the seed needs to undergo a certain amount of soil erosion and erosion from wind and rain before they'll actually germinate. And as I mentioned, you can plant them at any time of year. If you plant them right now, that's fine. If you plant them in the fall, that's fine. You should consider that the bluebonnet meadows on the side of the highway are grown from seeds that have been sitting in the side of the highway during blizzards and droughts and all sorts of weather conditions. So you don't have to worry about watering them, just get them on the ground and they'll do the rest. One of the other challenges you may face with growing these wildflowers on your own property is weed control, especially if you don't do your own yard work. If you're hiring a company to mow, edge, and control the amount of dandelions growing in your front lawn. Simply put, you don't know what chemicals they're spraying your lawn with as far as pre-emergent is concerned or anything else to prevent dandelions from growing all over your yard. In fact, the yellow flowers that you see in the video right now are dandelions. And there's also a couple of other little pink primrose flowers growing up through the meadow with some crabgrass. And you might notice this dead patch over here is because I kind of overdid it with some herbicide that I was using to try to get rid of crabgrass previously last year. To really make my point about weed control, this video was filmed in March 2023 before I had used any type of pre-emergent or herbicide to control the amount of dandelions growing in my front lawn. My HOA does not want me to grow dandelions. They don't really seem to mind me growing bluebonnets, but the dandelions are very difficult to control. And so over the years I have used some herbicide to get rid of the dandelions, and you'll see that this is the 2023 bluebonnet meadow. It is looking very good, very healthy. Once again, this is before I'd used any type of herbicide, and I have tried to avoid spraying the place where I'm growing bluebonnets, but really the only reason that this meadow looks so good is because I've done a lot of weeding by hand, and you'll notice there's some dandelions and crabgrass poking through this meadow. And so, as I previously mentioned, if you want to grow these wildflowers in your front lawn, it is really important that you do your own yard work. One of the reasons I say that is because this video was filmed from a really healthy wildflower meadow nearby my home 2 years ago. And today, this is what the same wildflower meadow looks like. It still has a lot of bluebonnets in it, but it really is a fraction of what was there 2 years ago. And I believe the primary reason for that is because the company that maintains the landscaping for this empty lot mows over the bluebonnets too early. This is some footage from my summer garden tour that I filmed last summer, and that dry tumbleweed looking object there is actually a bluebonnet that has gone to seed in June. And I showed those green seed pods earlier. This is what a dried bluebonnet seed pod looks like. I was shaking it there because it sounds a little bit like a maraca. You can hear the dried seeds inside the pod, and as the pods get drier and drier, they'll eventually split open and release the seeds into your lawn or gardening space. You can see it that at this point I've mowed over the bluebonnets that were in my front yard, and they've left this kind of dead looking patch. Once again, the bluebonnets look really great in the spring, not so great in the summer. Your HOA will definitely ask you to remove them after some time, but make sure that if you're going to mow them, it's after most of your bluebonnets have properly gone to seed. If you mow them while the pods are still green, you may very well kill the seeds and prevent your bluebonnet yield from being as strong in the years to come. And that's really my tips. In summary, that is, plant a lot of bluebonnet seeds. Don't worry about the conditions of the soil you plant them in. They'll happily grow in very fertile soil or dense clay soil. And make sure you do not mow over your bluebonnets until they've fully gone to seed and put out their seeds. One final suggestion, and it's just kind of a caution. As you're growing these bluebonnets, be careful with the size of a bluebonnet meadow that you try to grow. And I say that because a very small space is manageable, but if you try to cover like 3,000 or 4,000 square feet of your backyard with bluebonnets, you might create a snake den. Snakes love to hide in these bluebonnet meadows because they provide shade and concealment. And so you'll see in my backyard, I planted some bluebonnets, but they're not quite a meadow. We have a young daughter and we don't want her to get bitten by a snake. And so the bluebonnets are spaced out and are kind of in little islands. It's never happened to me personally or any of my loved ones, but I have heard some stories of people being bitten by rattlesnakes while walking around or trying to take family pictures in these bluebonnet meadows. So do stay vigilant and wear some boots while you're doing your yard work. I really love growing these wildflowers and making videos on them like this. If you've had success growing bluebonnets at home, please leave a comment on this video and explain any suggestions or tips that you might have yourself. And if you're still watching at this point in the video, once again, thank you for watching Austin, Texas Gardening.